there's a bunch of things going on as you talk about whistling past the graveyard is the student loan payment hiatus. We had paused and people said you don't have to pay during COVID.
That's resuming, thing, right? Why should anybody have to pay their student loans when they can't even get a job as a janitor?
You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
Welcome. You are listening to watching the Financial Survival Network. I'm your host, Kerry Lutz. Well, has the consumer finally run out of red ink, or is there always another jolt just off on the horizon? So far, the death of the consumer, or certainly his or her or your consumer spending, has been greatly exaggerated, as a wise writer once said. But are we finally at that moment, the Minsky moment, where the can can't be kicked down the road any further? Eddie Yoon is with us now. Hey, if you've got a question for Eddie or myself, kl@kerrylutz.com is the email address. Eddie, great to have you back on. So, death of the consumer greatly exaggerated as usual?
Yeah, I think that's right. We're not quite there yet. Doesn't mean that there isn't a near-death experience on the horizon, but so far they're trucking along. So the latest data from the government says that in July, that consumers are continuing to spend, but perhaps a bit unwisely. Like you and I might not advise, friends or children to spend this way, but there they go. So personal consumption expenditures is up 0.82% in July, which is the highest it's been in 23. However, disposable personal income is only up 0.15% in July, which is the lowest it's been in 23. So they're spending more, but they have less discretionary to spend. And, you can kind of see this happening. There's a bunch of things going on as you talk about whistling past the graveyard is the student loan payment hiatus. We had paused and people said you don't have to pay during COVID.
That's resuming, thing, right? Why should anybody have to pay their student loans when they can't even get a job as a janitor?
Well,
it's tens of thousands, right?
It's interesting. I think that all of my solution to this is that, you got to hold everybody accountable. Certainly, the consumer, but also the university. Like, I think that any debts or bankruptcies or loan forgiveness should be tied back to the university that granted the degree in the first place.
There is a thought, because they're the beneficiary. Really, the student got nothing out of this.
100%.
Right?
All of the whole kind of Pell loans and all the loan availability, it really bypassed the consumer and went straight to the university, because they were able to raise prices without any regard to outcomes. And so, basically the consumer, anyone with a loan on average is going to have $503 per month less to spend going forward. So, and then, you got loan delinquencies, Kerry, approaching Q2 of 2020 rates per the St. Louis Fed. And this is my favorite stat is, the number of 25 to 34-year-old adults that are living with their parents is 4 times higher than it was back in the 60s.
Well, bite your tongue, man. Well, thank goodness that's not something I've had to deal with. But for the grace of God go I. Hey, one thing, when going back to the student loans, not only is it in the interest, have the colleges benefited from this, but they benefit more from their students' failure than their success. The more courses you have to take over, the longer it takes you to get that degree. It used to be, when I went to school, 4 years, you got your degree. Yep. Now we got these perennial students, and they're just cash registers to the colleges. And then eventually the student is the bag holder. They get left holding the bag here, right?
Totally. I mean, I think, to your point, until the student gets a job, number one, your tuition should be capped at the average salary your graduate gets immediately after you graduate.
Like that.
That's kind of one. Two is, like, if you can't pay back your loan, then that should come back in the form of taxation, because all these schools are tax exempt, right? And so, basically, like you have, I mean, and it's a bit of a have and have nots. Like my understanding is that Princeton, as an example, makes enough money off of its endowment. So they're great money managers, right? So to the point where they could charge nothing for tuition and the endowment would still grow.
Harvard,
they could cover their, all of these schools.
Yeah. 65 billion last I heard in the Harvard endowment, or maybe that was Yale. It doesn't matter. You could just substitute a name.
Right.
And these nonprofit, these so-called nonprofit institutions seem to be doing just fine in a nonprofit environment,
Well, these are all hedge funds disguised as universities. I mean, that's really what it is. And if you had a hedge fund with that amount of assets under management, like, would you not tax them? Of course you would tax them. And so, all of this stuff is like, I not only do I think it should be university specific, I think it should be major specific, like if somehow, I mean, surprise, surprise, I'm guessing there's a lot fewer STEM graduates that are having trouble finding jobs or paying off their loans than, English degrees or whatever else might be. They're like, so like, I think accountability needs to happen. Unfortunately, the consumer, always buyer beware. So they're going to pay the price. But a lot of these universities, it's not like the professors are making more. It's that they have bloated middle management and they've hired administrators and people who have nothing to do with the actual teaching of the students. And that's the problem. So.
How about if we incentivize the professors, like, they keep a rolling average of what their students' pass or fail rate is, and when they graduate, and if they part of a team and they manage to get these things, get them to perform better, they get a bonus, and if they perform worse, hey, get rid of them or at least pay them less, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to your point about a bonus, not only professors, but the college presidents and every middle manager out there, it should be paid. You should get a bonus that is a percentage of the average income that your students generate post-college, right? I mean, that would be...
There's a thought there.
Very logical way of doing it. And
we'd have a lot of broke college professors who work for crummy or lower tier schools, but let's do it for law schools too. I don't know if you caught that James Grisham book about for-profit law schools, but it's the biggest scam on the planet. It was a funny book that they did, but
it is absolutely, there's a glut at the education that some professional institutions, like as you said, if you're not at a top whatever law school that you can land a corporate job, like you should not be out there. Like you should not be charging what the big law firms or law schools charge, at least. Like the idea that, I mean, this is like, if this were regulated as a business, it'd be price collusion, right? How is it possible that tuition is virtually the same everywhere you go, and yet the outcomes are radically different?
Yeah. Isn't that funny the way it works? And yet nobody seems to want to do anything. Do you think they got a big lobbying outfit to all of these colleges? Because really, the student loan debt bubble, the only beneficiary of it has been the colleges. Because look, let's face it, they didn't increase the number of students as the loan balances, as the loan thresholds went up. All they did was charge more money and hire more administrators, and there's no meaningful measure of professor or staff productivity at all. Maybe internally they have something, but
it's a good question. I don't know what the lobbying dynamic is with higher ed in Washington, but you're right that there's a reluctance to change things. And it is one of those things. I mean, part of it is what I feel bad about is it is a bit of the big lie that has been sold to the population that, education is a silver bullet. Like it is if you come from a family of never gone to college and you're the first generation to go to college. And it is if you study the right thing, that's much more of a pre-professional degree versus whatever.
Right.
But absent that, it's really become a social status club at the very high end education schools because the admissions rate for a legacy student is so much higher than it is for a regular student, and it's just another way of perpetuating aristocracy. But like, it's $1 trillion of debt plus that is misallocated capital that could have been much better used to buy a franchise or start a business of some sort. And because like essentially higher education may be the undoing of America as a economic power, because that debt that hangs over you is going to prevent you from buying a house, which is going to prevent you from having kids, which is going to prevent you from getting married. And then, population implosion, and we look like Japan and Western Europe, which is already starting to go that route. And so the downstream effects we're just starting to see.
All right. Well, it's a bad situation. They're not doing anything to make it better. And we got the 3 legs of the stool, actually 4 legs of the stool: consumer credit debt, credit cards, student loans, and auto loans, and home loans, right? And it seems to me the legs of that stool are rotten to the core.
Well, and it's interesting in that there's certainly rot in each of them. I think student loans has the most amount of rot for sure, just because the ROI has always been dubious from an educational standpoint. At least with the car loan, in theory, the car gets you to and from work, so you can be productive and earn money. The home loan, in theory, the value of your home is supposed to go up. Now, there's a whole bunch of changes that are going on in the housing market that may make things challenging for some time. But of all the different types of credit that's out there, I mean, the credit card one is absolutely, I think the consumer is getting savvier, but the percentage of people who revolve that's still going to be a problem. But frankly, the consumer, as you said, is doing no different than the government is doing, which is let's borrow from, tomorrow to pay for today. And at some point, you do have to pay the piper. I'm not sure when that's going to be. And I'm not sure if it'll be paid equally. I do think that it'll be very localized and very specific to categories and geographies. And
no doubt. Classes. I totally agree with you. Yeah, well, who's going to pay it? The taxpayer is going to pay it, right? Some way or another, these losses are always, they always wind up being socialized, whereas the profits from all these programs, which are a total mess, are privatized, right? Isn't that the way it works?
Yeah. No, it's absolutely the case. And the smart consumers, I mean, it's your point is well taken about college in general. Like, college enrollment is down actually it peaked in 2010, 2011, and it's down 1 million students. And so not only is the bubble is bursting, like there is meaningfully less enrollment. Prices will come down, and that, call it 1/3 to half of the universities are going to go out of business. And so the market will reconcile. It's just taking too long to do so. And in part, as you said, some of the core assumptions and the inaction and or lobbying is preventing it from happening in a way that the market should normally make things happen. And you're seeing this in other legs too, Kerry, is that, in general, my view is that categories that focus on experience and transformation, meaning, like international travel, is at a 46-year-old high. Like 22% of U.S. consumers want to travel abroad per the Conference Board. And then a category that I know well that I'm operating a business in, Geneo and Glow2 Facial, medical aesthetics, that's expected to grow 10% a year to $40 billion in 27, according to BCG. So categories that deliver the goods, like you get a great experience or you actually become better or different or a transformation in some way, shape, or form, that's going up. Whereas stuff that's just kind of physical goods, like I bought it yesterday and last week, therefore I buy it again, that's going to be super problematic. Target revenue down 5% in July. Home Depot revenue down 2% in July. And you'll like this one, Kerry, is that, physical goods, the pricing has come down so, you're going to see deflation there because there's just not too much stuff and too little people want it. But to the point, theft at retail is going to be a massive even 1-2 punch. It was estimated to be $100 billion in 22, and Target said that merchandise theft will rob shareholders of $500 million in earnings this year. And so,
well, shoplifting has been normalized, so why should we worry about it, right?
Well, we're going to worry because, I mean, we'll see how long the pain kicks in, but some parts of the country will just not have retail available to them. Why would a retailer operate a business there, put their people at risk and their merchandise at risk?
And I think it was Chicago that's got the cockamamie idea because of all the shoplifting, the theft, and the danger to everybody there. They're going to open up their own supermarkets to make up for the food desert. Now,
I didn't see that one. Definition
of complete and total, utter insanity, or am I crazy?
Well, it would. I haven't followed it, but if they were smart, they would do it in the new economy, not the old economy, right? So delivery would make a lot of sense, right? Because like the four horsemen of the apocalypse that's going to hit retail physical goods are, one, we've hit peak physical goods. People don't want that stuff anymore. They want experiences and transformation.
Look at China. Look at China.
Absolutely. Right? Two is you have the theft, shoplifting thing, which is like, it's just going to make it less pleasant to shop at these places. People won't go there. Three, you have e-commerce that's continuing to truck along, like Amazon's going to continue to do its thing.
Yeah.
And then four, you're going to have delivery services continue to rise, and that all of these things make it so that you don't need the retail experience to be a great one. They should become distribution warehouses where people can just get stuff shipped to them. And
showroom, right?
Showrooms, exactly that.
You go look at you go look in the big box store or whatever, the retail store for the product you actually want, and then you go order it online, right?
100%.
I like it. Hey, I do it all the time myself,
time is precious. Why would you,
Yeah. So they might as well accept their newly found role and capitalize on it. Maybe they'll charge you to walk in the store now,
Well, I mean, there are retailers in Japan that do that. And guess what? When you charge people for the experience gets better. And that's how club stores work, right? The reason why the Costco hot dog is $1.50 is you have to pay to enter the store. So,
like you made me think of that. Like maybe I will go to Costco and get a hot dog for lunch today. You just made me hungry. But hey, even if they said, look, it's $10 to come in, but you'll get a credit on your first sale, right?
Oh yeah.
Wouldn't that be a better thing for them?
Absolutely. I mean, the best thing that retailers could do would be to follow the Costco model, and you said, charge them up front so that that it's not going to be a shoplifter or whatever, someone who actually wants to be there. And as you said, give them a Scooby snack, whether it's, $1.50 hot dog, $5 rotisserie chicken or whatever, or a discount on future purchases. Like everybody wins in that scenario. So.
Yeah, I think it could work. I mean, there'd be outrage at first. There always is outrage. Remember when they started charging for credit cards? Once upon a time, there was complete and utter outrage. And now, what do you think? Like now everybody just accepts it, right?
Well, I think the consumer will eventually figure out, and I think this probably figure it out sooner rather than later, that there is no free lunch. That when you pay for something, you're going to get better experience, treatment, service, or whatever else it is. So as you said, credit cards went this way, retail is going to go this way, and look at social media is going to go this way too. When you get charged to be part of the platform, then at least you aren't the product that's being monetized and sold, which is like what Facebook is. So,
and the other thing is that when you get something for free, it has no value to you. Whereas when you have to actually pay for things, then it's a different thing altogether.
Yeah.
All right.
Hopefully we can free up money from paying for things like colleges and unnecessary education that free up more money to pay for things that people actually want. Will actually help them out. So,
yeah, well, that's the other thing. Like you and I, can talk about this. We already went to college. We already had our day. College was a lot more affordable and cheaper. Now that it's unaffordable, the person is saying like, oh, gee, you already got the benefit, and now you're screwing us out of it effectively.
Yes.
There's something to be said for that,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I understand where they're coming from, but things are definitely different now, aren't they?
Oh, it's incredible. Just the sheer mercenary nature of higher education. Like, these educational institutions started out with a missionary purpose, and now they're not. They're all here to suck as much money out of people as possible without delivering any outcomes. It should be criminal to do that. It should be criminal. Like some schools and some majors should have the same warning labels that cigarettes do. You could lose all your money with this, right? I mean, those trading options, the stock market. It's like you might lose all your money and get nothing out of this.
Mm-hmm. Hey, they become basically parasitic entities, haven't they?
Yes.
All right.
Any organization that loses its missionary purpose, said perfectly, becomes a parasite.
Yeah, it's rentier. They're rentier-seeking enterprises that couldn't care less about who's paying for it, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, Eddie, tell us again where we find you at these days.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at EddieWoodGrow, as well as my Substack, categorypirates.com. If you're a Kerry Lutz listener, then please send me a note and we'll gladly give you a complimentary subscription to it.
All right. EddieWoodGrow.com, if I remember and there it is on my website. Hey, if you got a question for Eddie or myself, shoot me an email, kl@kerrylutz.com. Twitter feeds at Kerry Lutz. And while you're at the site, you'll find a direct link to Eddie's site on financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Just click it. It'll take you right there. And while you're on the site, sign up for your free newsletter. Eddie, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Same here, Kerry. Thanks again.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.